Hobby Quick Hits. A sports card podcast where we tackle the hobby's hottest topics in depth to help you navigate the sports card landscape and enjoy the hobby we all love. Here's your host, John Newman.
Time for another episode of Hobby Quick Hits. Today's episode I've coined pivoting. We'll talk a little bit more specifically about the meaning of that hobby and not hobby-wise after we hear from our great sponsor, Mojo Break. We'll be right back to start the episode. Hey folks, wanted to tell you about the best place to get some of your sealed sports card wax products. Great selection and some of the lowest prices on the web. MojoBreakShop.com is that place. Whether it's a box or a whole case, they're your guys, and they ship around the world right to your door. The Mojo Break name is one of the most trusted in the hobby. From sports cards to Pokemon, their selection can't be beat. They offer daily deals and pre-orders. Who won first place at this year's Topps Rip Party? None other than Mojo Break. Their prices are already great, but here's a way to save even more money. Use the code QUICKHITS, that's QUICKHITS, for 10% off anything on MojoBreakShop.com. They also have a full-service card shop in Santa Clara, California. So if you're in the area, stop by. They're open 7 days a week, so check them out at MojoBreakShop.com. Alright, so before we get into the cards aspect of today's show, which I've coined pivoting, there's a parallel going on with my life. If you listen to Hobby Quick Hits, you know I use a lot of sort of real life parallels to the hobby. Not that the hobby isn't real life, but there's things we can take from outside the hobby and apply them to the hobby, and I do that quite often, and this is going to be another one of those cases. So a little bit of personal. Some of the stuff you may have heard if you listen to the show. Some of this you may be hearing for the first time. I was at a job for 6 years. It was in the transportation industry. It did pay well, but I really wasn't enjoying the job anymore. It was very stressful. It was almost 12-hour days, 5 days a week. So I was putting in between 50 to 60 hours a week. It was an hourly wage, so I was getting quite a bit of overtime. So it wasn't a money issue. It was a health and happiness issue. And was really, Sunday nights would come around. I would dread sort of the work week. And that spills into your regular life, if you will, your home life, your extracurricular activities, even doing podcasting. Your energy level is not as high. It kind of seeps through, if you will. And I have quite a few friends in the teaching industry, and they're like, John, you should become a teacher's assistant. You got to take a test. You're a smart guy. You love working with kids. You've coached youth sports, high school sports. This is like made for you. And I sort of hemmed and hawed and like, yeah, blah blah blah. And I didn't really, I drug my feet on it, and I didn't do anything about it. As much as I was not liking my job, I just kind of said, I'm kind of, you get stuck in that rut. And, but eventually, there's a test you have to take. It takes 3 hours. You got to pass it to become a teacher's assistant. And I could see my job sort of really coming to a sort of bad crescendo. I was just getting very grumpy, if you will, very unhappy, where it was just not a healthy situation. So I went and took what's called an ATES test, the assistant teaching, and I needed 300 to pass. I got a 285. And so I got the first step done. On September 2nd, came to work, started my day like I usually do. And, whether my employer got wind of me sort of laying the groundwork, the tracks to exit the job, and they were unhappy, which is one theory I have. They came up into my office and told me to, finish up kind of what I was doing that morning, and that they were going to go in a different direction. And I'm not trying to be cocky or braggadocious, but I've worked since I've been 13 years old. I'm 48, and that was the first time I was ever let go from a job. I've always left on my own accord. And to be honest with you, it was sort of a relief. I mean, no one wants to be let go. It's let's keep it real, right? It's bruising to ego that someone has that control, if you will, over you. But it was sort of a relief too, because I knew that whether it was me kind of going to leave soon, hopefully anyways, but this sort of bought me some time. And what I mean by that is this. One of the reasons I didn't make that pivot to the new career of teaching and teaching assistant was working those 12-hour days almost every day, 5 days a week, right? It didn't leave a lot of time. I was sort of physically tired doing cards and shows and personal life and family. So it didn't leave a big time window to get that stuff done. And so when this happened, the light bulb went on in two ways. I said, man, this is not where I want to be. Ultimately, I'm unhappy here, so that misery is going to end, even though it's not me dictating the terms. But by being let go rather than quit, right? Whenever you quit a job, if you don't have another job lined up, you can't collect unemployment. You can't get that revenue stream. But by being let go, I could. It was the first time I've ever been on unemployment. I don't like it. I didn't like it, I should say. I'm not on it anymore. But it's there for those purposes and when people who need it. And so signed up for that. And it allowed me time to then go where I ultimately wanted to be and not necessarily lose income. Obviously, I have other revenue streams from the card aspect to even the podcasting aspect. So I was fortunate. I mean, the only one, I don't want to say complaint, the only one bad thing is there was an issue with my unemployment account. Someone, unbeknownst to me, in March while I was working, filed unemployment using my name and social. And so I didn't get those unemployment checks right away until they cleared that account. So there was about a 3-week delay before I start getting the unemployment I was due. So for a few weeks we didn't really have job income, if you will. I had other sources of income, but not that kind of weekly guaranteed pay, if you will be. Unemployment here in New York takes what you averaged, and you get it based on that. So I had the max that you could get, but the problem was that 3-week delay while they cleared that account, and they wanted to make sure it wasn't me that was filing a fraudulent claim, because they asked me, did you file in March? Did you lose employment in March too? I'm like, no, I was working in March. This is the first time period I've ever had to file from unemployment ever. I didn't file in March. So the light bulb went on for them that someone using my identity had tried to file for unemployment. So that had to be cleared up. It eventually was. But enough about that. And what I want, to kind of put a bow on the personal side of that story was I wound up getting a job as a teacher's assistant at a high school. And absolutely love it. I love it. Sundays roll around. And instead of dreading go back to work, I'm looking forward to it. I work with a great bunch of kids that I've gotten to know very well, and vice versa, and just a very rewarding and impactful job. Quite frankly, the only regret I have is not doing it sooner. Hours are not 12-hour days. They're 7:45 to 2:45. So 7 hours, including a lot of downtime in that 7 hours. You get, a half-hour lunch period, a couple study halls, a resource period, and so it's a pretty, I don't want to say easy day, but it's nowhere near as stressful as what I was doing, and it's just been a great transition for myself, my family. The actual pay that you get per hour is higher than the job I was at for 6 years. The difference is I'm working 35 hours a week instead of 50. So there's that 15 hours. But we're financially, we're in a good spot where that's okay. I've also have other revenue streams, as I mentioned, between cards. And the thing I do, here I was getting home at 6 p.m. With my previous job. So what I also did is Ubered part-time during that time when I was let go from my job and before I started my new job. And I love it. I'm not going to, some people, being a people person, I love the Ubering. And what I like to do is Uber at Syracuse University campus with the college kids. And great conversations a lot of times. Sometimes they don't want to talk, and that's fine. I let the rider dictate. But it's a pretty good gig. And when you do it on a college campus, your mileage is a lot less. You're just usually taking a young man or woman from campus to their dorm, which is just a lot of times just a couple miles. And so what I decided to do on most days, I leave school at 2:45 p.m., get in my car, and I have to drive through the city of Syracuse to get home. It's a 17-minute commute, 12 miles. So the school I'm at is literally 6 miles from Syracuse. So, my house is 6 miles from Syracuse, and the school I work at is 6 miles from Syracuse South. So 12 miles in total. And so Syracuse University is literally halfway between my house and my school I work at. So I leave school at 2:45, get in my car, drive to the university. Takes about 7 minutes. Turn on my Uber flag, if you will, that I'm on duty, and I literally drive Uber for about an hour to about 3:45. 3:45, 4 o'clock, 4:15 at the latest. Usually that's about in an hour on campus. It's about 5 to 6 rides, about $25 extra dollars. Turn my thing off when I'm done and head home. Sometimes, every once in a while, I actually get a drop-off even close to my house, and I'll kind of wrap up the day then. I'm usually home when I do Uber after school. I'm still home about 4:30 at the latest, 4 o'clock some days, and $25. You do that 5 days a week. There's an extra $125 in addition to pay. Do I have to do it? No, I don't. To be quite blunt honest with you, but I enjoy it. I still beat my previous time home by usually over 2 hours, and it's extra income, and I don't look at it as work. It's it's funny. Neither of the things I'm doing now, that Uber for the hour after school and working at school, I don't view as like employment. Not in the same vein as I used to. And just a whole different mental place I'm in. It may even come across in some of the podcasting, if you will. You might be able to tell the difference. I hope so. I know people I live with, including my wife, can tell the difference, and that's a good thing and a good place to be. And I hope everyone out there is either at a place like that or can get to a place like that. And so it's changed. It's changed that side of things. So let's get to the hobby side. So thinking about these recent events with my employment and my affecting my attitude and my mental well-being, I thought about the hobby aspect, right? You go on social media, don't matter which platform. We don't have to single out any platform, any of them where messages can be conveyed or tweets can be made or that sort of thing, right? There's a lot of grumpy, I don't want to say a lot, but a decent amount of grumpy, unhappy people kind of complaining about the hobby constantly, to the point, you just wonder, like, why are you even doing it? If it's that source of angst to you, just like my job in the transportation industry. Someone might say, well, John, why did you do it 6 years if you weren't happy with it? Well, you can't compare that to the hobby. That was a job that was paying my mortgage and my heat and my water bill and putting food in the fridge. And my wife works as well. I don't want to make it like I'm the only one, but I needed to have a job to survive, right? And, it may not sound right, but you don't need the hobbies to survive, right? If we all, and I'm not promoting this, but if we all put down our cards and walked away, while we might miss the cards, unless you're full-time in the hobby, you'll still be able to survive. Now, if you're full-time in the hobby, own a store, you're in a different atmosphere, okay? You're different space, and I get that. I'm not talking about those people. But if you're doing the hobby for fun, even a side revenue, as I do, we can walk away and still survive. And so when I see all these people, just complaining and just, constantly, I just say, man, I thought I use that parallel. I'm like, change what you're doing, right? Now, I'm not condoning leaving the hobby. But if the hobby is that kind of source of angst, maybe you need to. And there's different ways to leave the hobby. You can quit cold turkey, never come back again. You can take a week break, a month break, a couple months break, couple years break, come back, right? There's also other ways to pivot. You don't have to leave. You can just change what you're doing, how you collect, what you buy, how you hobby. Maybe if there's a source of a part of the hobby that's a source of angst for you, avoid that part of the hobby, right? If you don't like grading, I know that's a sore spot for some, don't do it. You don't have to do it. Listen, I do grading, and I get some of the angst. The the companies and how grading works, sometimes it's its own worst enemy. I understand that. But you don't have to do grading. There's plenty of people who are active in the hobby that don't dabble or deal with graded cards. They don't buy them. They don't acquire them. They don't sell them. They deal with all just raw cards, and that's fine. I do that too. And maybe you don't like something going on in the sport. Maybe you don't like some of the basketball is my least favorite sport out of the four major ones, probably, because a lot of the way the sport is sort of governed, the players have kind of taken over the league. These super teams, there's only 3 or 4 teams that can honestly win an NBA championship, in my opinion. You got players openly recruiting their buddies, fellow superstars, to come over there to their team, not just in the off season, but even during the season, which in other sports would be collusion. And so it's I'm a Brooklyn Nets fan for the fact that I'm from Brooklyn, but it's the sport I probably least follow. Now, I do follow it. I do keep tabs. Why? Because I have basketball cards, right? And I do buy and sell basketball cards. Full disclosure. But when we talk about pivoting, if something is upsetting you, you can change the narrative on how you hobby. Whether that's you eliminate something, add something else, whether that's taking a break, whatever time period you put on that. I've said on this show many a times, there's times when it seems like about every 4 to 5 weeks, I take a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday and don't do anything card-wise or content creation-wise. Maybe I don't post much. I don't pick up cards. I don't hit record on my editing, and don't turn on my microphone. And even taking those 2 to 3 day breaks every month, 5 weeks, it really makes me appreciate not having that come back sort of replenished, renewed, and that's an option too. If you're at sort of your hobby's wit's end, whatever time, I do it, 2 to 3 days every 4 to 5 weeks. That's what works for me. You may have to do it more frequently. You may have to do it more infrequently. That's up to you. But, there's no, when I was unhappy with my job, I had started to lay the groundwork to leave. My employer beat me to the punch and let me go. While scary, in the end, it turned out to be a blessing in disguise. And I was thinking about that again before doing this episode, and I said, man, there's some hobby parallels. You're not enjoying yourself. It's not good for your mental health. It's not productive. It's spilling over negatively into your personal life or making you unhappy. Change the narrative, right? Maybe you're collecting baseball, basketball, football, and one of them is really, getting under your skin. Go away from that. Focus on what part of the hobby makes you happy. If there's no part of the hobby making you happy, find that surprising, to be blunt honest, but, could happen. Maybe just wears on you to the point where you don't enjoy it no more. If you get to that point, again, to kind of rehash, you can take a permanent break. You can hit pause and then hit play again when you think you're ready to do so. So you can pivot in any way you want. Maybe, you pivot in the hobby can be this way too. Hey, I don't sell my cards, but man, I'm spending a lot of money on my hobby. It's affecting my bank account. Hey, I want to pivot into starting to sell the cards that I'm not fond of or don't have that attachment to, right? That's a way to pivot in the hobby as well. Sell stuff you're not attached or it's not that important to you to sustain or fund the cards that are more important to you. That's pivoting. Pivoting just really means, the word pivoting itself, when we talk about hobby or real life or jobs, it's just changing what you're doing, right? I'm going to pivot from this and do this, right? And again, it can apply to the hobby. So it's just changing how you hobby so the hobby's enjoyable to you and you get the most out of it. So rewarding experience. It's not affecting you in a negative fashion. And this is a hobby. This is an outlet, right? This is supposed to be something that brings us enjoyment. I'm talking about not just the financial aspect. Obviously, if it's your full-time job, sure, there's enjoyment there. I think most people who are full-time in the hobby will tell you, while it's a lot of work and has stressful moments, how fun is it when we're doing sports cards full-time. I did it for 6 years, pretty much full-time. I get it. I've wore that hat. And while it can be difficult, it's also fun as well. And so, if you get to the point where it's not that anymore and you need to change something up, you control that, right? You were the boss. I did that show, right, on this very podcast. Be the CEO of your hobby. You are the CEO of your hobby. You can, if As long as you have the means, you can buy whatever you want. You don't have to buy whatever you want. You can collect what you want. You don't have to collect what you want. And you can change your mind. You don't have a board of directors, hopefully, to answer to, unless you're married. And even for me personally, my card life is really separate. My wife doesn't know about cards. She's supportive, but she says, hey, do your thing and enjoy it. And she has hobbies as well, not cards, but other things, and we do them on our own accord. And so if you're unhappy, whether that's in your business life, in your employment life, or you're unhappy in your hobby life, you can pivot. And that's what this show was about. I hope you got that from it. If you have any questions, again, I'm not a life coach or, personal finance guy or anything like that. But, I'm 48 years old and have a lot of hobby experience and have a lot of life experience. So if you ever have a question, my door, as always, is always open to help you out or, give you an opinion or advice when I can and if I can. I just want to make that very clear. So thank you for spending a little time with me today. Thank you for allowing me to share a little bit of my personal life on the employment side. I know I took a little bit getting to the hobby side, but wanted to kind of lay the track and groundwork to get there. So with that being said, enjoy the hobby, enjoy your life as much as you can, and do the things you can do to get to that place. We'll see you next time on Hobby Quick Hits. Take care. All right. Thank you for listening to another episode of Hobby Quick Hits. Want to give out our social media, starting with our website, which is www.sportscardnationpodcast.com. Facebook, you can follow us at www.facebook.com/sportscardnationpodcast/ Twitter, we are at SportsCardNati1, so it's SportsCard NATI1. Instagram at SportsCardNationPodcast, or you can email the show hobbyquickhits@gmail.com. Again, thanks for listening. We'll see you next week.
In case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.